A Doom Eternal YouTuber I watch a lot, called Under the Mayo, made a rule set called Brawler Mode that encourages a more chaotic and challenging way to play the game. I tried this rule set out and I really liked it. It was like learning the game all over again, but even more fun now that I'd already mastered the game's mechanics. I was inspired by this to make a rule set for my favorite Kingdom Rush game, in order for me to enjoy the game more, and hopefully for the community to do as well. Champion difficulty, or just Champion for short, is a set of rules that I came up with that aims to balance the game for a much more challenging experience. If you are familiar with my challenge videos, then this rule set is not just some stupid limitations I came up with on a whim in order to make the game extremely difficult. This rule set aims to find a good balance between challenge and fun. That being said, these rules are made for people who know how to play this game and want to improve and be challenged. When I say this is a more balanced version of the game, I don't just mean that I've banned all the OP towers. I tried playing the game that way, and while it was fun for the first couple of levels, I just quickly lost interest in it. So instead of forcing you to use your less relevant options, I instead tried to make something that makes you want to use all of your different options. I've play tested and tweaked the rules a lot at this point, and I feel like it's in a really fun place right now. Disclaimer: this rule set is play tested on the Steam version and briefly on iOS. There may be differences between the many different versions that throws off the balance. On iOS, everything seems to be working as intended, except that Tesla appears to deal slightly more damage due to splash damage reduction being calculated after each attack, and meteors flying all over the place, making it harder to delete enemies. Alright, the rules are made to serve 3 core purposes. 1. Balance the game. 2. Make the game more challenging. And 3. Make the gameplay more active. All of the implemented rules are made to serve one or multiple of these 3 purposes. I'm now going to list a long list of rules while giving some insight on the decisions and also provide some general strategies and tech which is going to help you get through this thing. First and foremost, if you're playing on a version that has the shop, then all items from it are prohibited. Speed hacks, cheats or mods that will gain you an unfair advantage are obviously also not allowed. Let's start with upgrades. The precision shot upgrade is banned to make the game harder, and so is the slow curse. This change is mainly done in order to make the power level of archers and mages similar, and to encourage more use of barracks to slow enemies down, because as you will notice, no upgrades are banned in the barracks tree. I will talk more about this later. Industrialization and smart targeting are prohibited. These changes are made specifically to nerf the Tesla. No smart targeting will greatly reduce its damage, and no industrialization to keep the cost of overcharge a little higher, as this upgrade is mainly what makes the Tesla what it is. No smart targeting also plays into more use of barracks. If you want to maximize the damage of a big bertha, you want to support it with a barrack. Cataclysm is also banned to reduce the Rain of Fire's damage. Now it isn't such a good panic button, and you will have to strategize better to make it through stages. Initially I wanted to ban the Blazing Earth upgrade as well, so the cooldown was higher, but it reduced the damage too much to the point where only the most patient players would be able to beat this, so only Cataclysm is banned. The Spear Throw upgrade is also prohibited. To compensate for this, the reinforcements will still deal good damage with the level 5 barrack upgrade that I left in here. I initially banned the spears to promote the use of barbarians. However, I didn't find myself using barbarians more because of this change. But what it did unintentionally was make the flying enemies much more oppressive, especially in the early waves. And I really like this change. You can't just start out by dumping all your money into one tower now, or invest too much in artillery. Artillery is still very strong and vital to your success on some levels, but you have to think about when to buy it much more now. It's more of a high risk, high reward tower, which is always how I thought the tower should be. Because barracks are pretty strong now, I did start to see the value in barbarians, because you will often have another barrack nearby to support them, and they are especially useful for boss fights and black hacks, as well as hordes of flying enemies, because of how much damage the throwing axe does. Moving on to heroes. Half of them are banned, which includes Ignis, Elora, Ingvar, Haxor, Oni and Thor. These 6 heroes are chosen because they all have a similar power level, and all of them are pretty distinct in what they provide. Yeah, Bolin and Elaria are getting a bit outclassed, and I didn't really find them that useful. Bolin works alright though, but you are most likely gonna be better off with Dennis. However, they wouldn't really make sense to ban, and well, they're there if you want them. Magnus on the other hand is a bit more relevant, but you will most likely use him less than Geralt, Malik and Dennis. He is a strong pick when facing many armored enemies and enemies that can dodge melee attacks. Because he is ranged, he levels up faster than the melee heroes, which of course also applies to the other ranged heroes. Coming back to the more threatening flying enemies, it flows well with your hero pool. 4 out of 6 of them are ranged. But you will be tempted to use Geralt because of how good he is at dueling. But having a ranged hero is now a big advantage, because it allows you to have more freedom of your starting strategy in levels where flying enemies come out early. You can still use Geralt or Malik on most of these stages, but you will have have to be clever with your tower strategy if you do. Speaking of Malik, he now becomes much more relevant. Gerald is really good, but so is Malik, and they both provide something different. When you are playing the game normally, Gerald always seems like the better choice, because heroes are not that important if you're good at setting up towers correctly. He is good at dueling threatening enemies and is easier to use than Malik, because he is faster, more tanky, and levels up faster. When you are using Malik, you have to be more attentive to make sure you keep him alive while also getting him XP efficiently. But don't underestimate how good his abilities are for area damage and stunning. They deal true damage and gets very powerful in his high levels. On levels like Rodwick is where he truly shines. It's easy to level him up and you constantly face hordes of enemies. There have been a couple times where I felt stuck and I couldn't beat a particular challenge, but upon switching from Gerald to Malik, the stage became so much easier. In general, don't underestimate the power of heroes in this rule set, and it's important to be switching them out, both depending on your tower strategy and the stage you are playing. On the tower special abilities, or whatever they're called. On the Ranger, Wrath of the Forest is prohibited. No more stun locking the entire battlefield. And on the Musketeer Garrison, the Sniper Shot is also banned. On the Sorcerer, both specials are prohibited. But don't worry, this tower is still very strong without these. The Polymorph is banned because it's basically an insta-kill with an extra step, and it's cheaper than the one on the Arcane. Now there is more of a reason to use Arcanes. And the Summon Elemental is banned to make boss fights more interesting, encourage more use of barracks, and because keeping it would make the Sorcerer too strong compared to the Arcane, where you can use both specials. The only option you have for insta-kills is now the Arcane. With the Sharpshooters, you just buy the Sniper Shot upgrade and let it do its own thing, hoping that it lands a bunch of headshots. But the Death Ray is on a cooldown, so landing an insta-kill is more skill based, and you have to isolate the target and time it right to make it work. It makes you think more, because you have to set it up. It also serves the purpose of teaching you this skill, which you will need later for more challenging levels. Not only just for insta-killing, but managing waves, isolating targets or sending enemies through in small groups can make some waves much more manageable, and this is something you have to get used to if you want to beat this rule set. On the Tesla, the overcharge is still allowed, but you can only buy the tier 1 upgrade. It's almost too much. But I tried with tier 2 and the Tesla still dealt way too much damage. The Tesla will feel almost useless when you first try it out. However, it still has its moments, but it's more of a late game tower. And it definitely needs to be placed in a spot where the overcharge can hit enemies all around it. On the Paladins, you can also only get Healing Light tier 1. Fully upgrading it pretty much makes them invulnerable against most enemies, and it's just too strong. But keeping it at tier 1, they still can stall enemies for a long time, but will die to bigger enemies a little faster. The balance between the towers feels pretty good now. All towers have a purpose, and you will have to use all of them now. That being said, I did not intend to see equal use of all towers. It's impossible to have 8 distinct towers that are equally good in every situation. That's not how they're designed. Of course, Paladins are mostly the better option. You buy a barrack to stall enemies, so most of the time you'll gravitate towards the tankiest. But that doesn't mean the Barbarians are forgotten. They still have a place when used in the right scenarios. And the same case can be made with all the other tower classes. One of them is a tower for a specific purpose, and the other one fills the general role of the tower. Levels also have to be beaten with 20 lives remaining. If you lose a life, you are dead and you have to restart. It can be a little frustrating to have to restart a level instantly if you can't remember the wave formation or you want to practice what's ahead. So you can play on if you want, but you'll have to quit the level before you beat it. You can only finish a level with 20 lives. Whether you want to play with insta-fail or look ahead before you quit is up to you. When you're playing the main campaign, you won't really feel these restrictions too much. So there is an extra rule here. All heroes are banned. You have to beat the levels flash style. However, you can use the heroes on the Iron and Heroic challenges where the game allows them. I've made this change because I recommend you to start a fresh save file. All difficulties will be allowed, and unless you are a war champion, you're probably gonna lower the difficulty on some stages. I say this because I myself had to lower the difficulty to normal on many stages my first time. There is no shaming having to lower the difficulty. That just means you have something to come back to and improve on. And on a fresh save, you will be able to keep track of which levels you have beaten on what difficulty easier. Lowering the difficulty can also sometimes help you beat it on a higher difficulty. Sometimes all you need to succeed is a little optimization of your tower strategy or reprioritizing your towers. You will notice that barracks are now the only option for stalling enemies, other than your hero and reinforcements of course, and that's intentional. It's another way to make the gameplay more active, as you are encouraged to micro your barracks around now that the game is much harder. Try and look for good spots to place them. Ideally, if you can micro a barrack between 2 different paths, you will have an advantage. There is also the teleport, but it isn't as reliable. I did use it from time to time, but it's pretty niche. The Iron and Heroic on the first 4 stages are completely identical to the normal game, so they are optional. And the Green Monk boss fight, or the boss fight at the end of Rotten Forest, is almost impossible and is therefore also optional. Rotten Forest is already a really hard stage, which sometimes can take a couple of tries to beat, even if you know how. So to have a boss fight so hard that it would take even a skilled player many tries to even know what to do is not very fun. So once you clear wave 19 and have 20 lives left, you can consider the level complete, but you can't just call wave 20 and call it done. There has to be no swamp things left on screen when you quit. If you're playing on a new save file, just beat the level regularly to progress. Enjoy the little break and get ready for Fungal Forest, which is even crazier. All iron challenges on the elite stages are also optional. They aren't very fun. It is really hard to make a rule set that keeps things suitably brutal across all stages and challenges. On the iron challenges, they often expect you to use certain specials to succeed, and most of those are banned. Some of them even looks to be impossible. So if you decide to do them, you're gonna need some help. So I'm allowing Summon Elemental, Spear Throw, and all heroes for these. It was the only changes I could make that wouldn't compromise the balance too much. But these rules only apply to the elite stages iron challenges, and not the ones on the main campaign. When you get into the elite stages, this rule set is most likely going to be a learning experience. Keep in mind, this is not just about challenging yourself, but also learning a new playstyle. I spent many hours not getting anywhere, and I thought I had to tweak the rules further, but after a while, I started to get it. So I would recommend you to start with Ruins of Akeroth and Hushwood as your first levels. These are the easiest out of the bunch, and they are going to teach you some skills which you will need going forward. Don't start with Salgar's Lair. While the level itself is rather easy, the boss fight is ridiculous, and you're going to need some advanced tactics and clever tower setup to beat it. Now I'm going to mention some cool tech that may help you on your journey. If you place reinforcements behind enemies, you can stall them for up to 2 seconds extra, which has a variety of uses. It's very helpful for enemies that quickly kills your reinforcements, and bosses who often one-shots them. That little extra time to keep them stalled can sometimes make a big difference. You can also combine this trick with the Rain of Fire's residue to keep big enemies stuck in it for as long as possible, or pick off threatening enemies from a crowd. Here I'm able to make both reinforcements target the Demon Lord even though he is only slightly behind the Golemons. You can stun lock an enemy by moving your hero in and out of combat during an attack animation. This is easier with an enemy that has a slow attacking animation, which also applies to your hero. Bolin, Malik and probably Dennis too have a very slow movement speed, which makes it even easier to perform this trick. Shout out to War Champion for making me aware of this. You should all go and check him out if you haven't already. He is almost at 1,000 subs, so let's get him there. He deserves it. But anyway, you can use this trick to stun lock bosses with your hero taking minimal or no damage if you work on the coordination. It's also useful if your hero is low on health but you need to stall that particular enemy. Then you can both keep your hero alive and keep the enemy stuck in this place while you wait for your reinforcements to get recharged. So that's champion difficulty. Go ahead and give it a go. If you ever wanted to replay the game like it was your first time playing it, this is probably as close as it gets. When playing on veteran, there's a few heroic challenges and one particular stage that gets pretty ridiculous. These are gonna make most people give up, but I wouldn't change it. This is called champion difficulty after all. I gotta give the super juicers something to think about, and they are still pretty achievable on normal, so there's something for everyone. Before you go, here's a quick refresher on the rules. They will also be down in the description for easy access. Star upgrades. No precision, no slow curse, no industrialization, no smart targeting, no cataclysm, no spear throw. Heroes. No Ignis, no Elora, no Ingvar, no Hacksaw, no Oni, no Thor. Tower specials. No Wrath of the Forest, no Sniper Shot, no Summon Elemental, no Polymorph. Overcharge tier 1 only. Healing Light tier 1 only. Main campaign. No heroes. Optional challenges. Iron and Heroic stage 1 to 4. Green Monk boss fight. Elite stages iron challenges. Elite stages iron challenges. All heroes allowed. Spear throw allowed. Summon elemental allowed. All difficulties allowed. 20 lives remaining for all stages. You don't have to strictly follow these rules. This rule set is about having fun, and if you have more fun playing with spear throw or whatever, then go ahead. But if you do change anything about the rules, it won't be champion difficulty anymore. That's all for me now. I hope you enjoyed this rule set as much as I did. Thanks for watching. Now go and enjoy yourself. Okay, great.